Welcome to the watercolor troubleshooting videos. This is video number 1. When is your brush too wet and when is it too dry? If you're working wet in wet, then you need a very wet brush, as you can guess, but it can be too wet. For instance, if you take a look at my brush now, you can see it's very wet. There is actually a little drop of water on the tip. So if I lay down, then it's very, very wet. You see? Well, on the other hand, if you work wet in wet, you can also have your brush too dry. And that's when there is not a lot of water in there and the paint will dry up very quickly. So you need to go somewhere in the middle. So what I do is I dry off my brush. I just gently wipe it round the side of the palette, and then I tap it a couple of times until I tap it onto kitchen towel a couple of times until I notice that the tip of my brush is very wet. You can see it's wet, it contains water, but the tip is sharp. And that's when there is just enough water in there for wet in wet painting techniques. As you can see here in the texture, you can see there is a little excess water there that's collecting in the deeper areas of the paper, but it's not puddles. So this is still a puddle. This one is too dry and this one is exactly right. So once more, you wet the brush, and as you can see now, the tip is round. This is too wet. So I gently stroke it round the edge of the palette, and then I tap it onto kitchen towel a couple of times until I see that the tip of my brush is really nice and sharp. And as you can see, the stain I just made is still wet. So that's what I'm after.